They're managing tournament football very well. Not the most stellar performances, but they're in another semi-final.
They are brilliant news, isn't it? Fantastic news. It wasn't always an easy watch, but as you say, they're doing the business results-wise, and as they progress through the tournament and get closer to the finishing line, confidence will certainly improve. And with it, I think performances, it's been bit by bit, performances, especially in the last two games, have got better. And you would hope that they would take another step further against the Netherlands on Wednesday. So, yeah, it's going well.
Yeah, it is. And let's start at the end of last night, shall we? And that penalty shootout. I felt weirdly confident, actually, when England started that shootout. And I think a lot of the focus naturally goes to Bukayo Saka, who held his nerve brilliantly because he would have been forgiven for thinking about what happened 3 years ago.
Yeah, it is all about nerve, isn't it? In the moment, and you know, you think back to some of our previous shootouts as far back as '96, where we looked so nervous, didn't we, at Wembley that night? Whereas in stark contrast, we looked so confident. You know, the boys stepped up and had that look on the faces that they knew what they needed to do, and they knew they were going to do it. I mean, you mentioned Bukayo Saka, but you know, Cole Palmer opening it up. He's new to England, new to tournament football, so accomplished. Ivan Toney was just ridiculous, you know, that technique of not looking at the ball, the technique that he does so brilliantly for Brentford. But when you got the 3 lines on your shirt, can you carry it off then? And he did so wonderfully well. So, yeah, 5 out of 5 brilliant penalties.
I was listening to your former teammate Gary Lineker talk about Ivan Toney last night, Alan, and the sheer stones to just not look at all at the ball and take a penalty. It is incredibly brave, isn't it?
It is. I mean, you can imagine how many times he practices it in training. You know, how many steps back he takes. He has a good look at that ball, and then he lifts his head, and he doesn't have a look. In your peripheral vision, you can just see it, I suppose, at the bottom of your eyes, but all about practice. But you can do that as many times as you like. It's about doing it on the day and with the tension ramped up to the max. So fair play to him for carrying it off.
As for the game itself, did 3 at the back work better for you?
It did. It did on the day. I thought it gave us a little bit more forward momentum. I mean, Saka hardly played like a wing back. It was virtually his normal position. We all thought he was going to play on the left, didn't we? And Trippier on the right. But he stuck with Saka in his favoured position, and it paid dividends big time. So whether he does it again against the Netherlands, who play a back 4, we'll wait and see. But it's great that he's got an option. He can switch between the two, and the players aren't phased.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, actually, and about Bukayo Saka, that because Switzerland were relatively conservative, he can play almost as a right winger, where you think that the Netherlands will offer a fair amount more going forward, that whether it would work again with Saka that high up the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Switzerland play those 3 up front that have done really well, and I thought perhaps Southgate was willing to go 3v3 with our 3 defenders against their 3 attackers, and we didn't really get in too much bother. Obviously, we came under the cosh at times against Switzerland. Against the Netherlands, it's slightly different. You know, Memphis Depay, they play the same system as we have, 4-2-3-1 more often than not. Memphis Depay up top, Cody Gakpo leading the charge, really. He's been their best player, their best striker in this tournament. From the left-hand side. So we'll see what Southgate does, but, you know, he's played that back 3 many times in the past, as he has the back 4. So he keeps the opposition coach guessing as well.
Where do you think we are with Harry Kane, who obviously went off injured last night, took a bad bang? He's not involved massively in the games at the moment, but he would point to the fact that in the last round he scores the winning goal against Slovakia, and that's what he's there for.
Yeah, it is a concern, though, Rob. You look at him and he looks laboured. He doesn't look sharp. I know he's not one really to play on the last line and to be making bendy runs in behind defenders, but he was hardly getting into the game. And also, normally, he's so good when the ball's played up to him. He manoeuvres his body against the centre half. He can either hold it or knock it off. But he was being dominated quite often by the likes of Fabian Schär. So it is a concern. I don't think Southgate would leave him out. But in Ivan Toney, he's got somebody that physically he's in a better place, I think. And of course, you're playing against Virgil van Dijk, De Vrij as well. Really experienced defenders in that back four for the Netherlands. But we do need more off Kane. We do need more. There's no question about that.
I guess it feels a little bit like one of those scenarios where the longer the tournament goes on, the less likely he is to think about dropping Harry Kane for a semi-final and potentially a final.
Well, of course, yeah, he's got that great tournament experience. He's been there, done it. So you don't want to discard those type of players lightly in terms of dropping them out of the first 11. So it would be a major shock if he did that. But he'll need to rest up, Harry. You know, as I said, physically he doesn't look right, and for somebody who I think it takes a lot to dent his confidence, maybe that has been affected a little bit over the course of this tournament because he doesn't look quite the same.
We would expect probably Mark Guéhi to come back in after his suspension for that semi-final. Do you think there'll be any other tweaks?
I mean, it's not a given that Guéhi comes back after how Ezri Konsa played. I mean, he's another lad, you know, hardly pulled on an England shirt, never mind about in tournament football, and he put in the kind of performance that he did. So that gives Southgate more food for thought. But as for other changes, I don't think so. I mean, Kobbie Mainoo next to Declan Rice and ahead of Declan Rice quite often was sensational. A youngster with a very old head on his shoulders. I mean, what a find for Manchester United and England. He has been absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I don't see too many changes. Luke Shaw, of course, that is the obvious one. I think, as Carvey just said, he came in after a long time out. February was it that he played his last game, and he got a nice touch of the ball. You know, he can pick up the pace of first team football, tournament football. He's got that experience, so he's in a pretty decent place to start the match.
What have you made of the Netherlands from what you've seen of them so far in this tournament?
Yeah, they put in some good displays. Sometimes they've been a little bit cautious, very much like many other sides, much like England at times. They've had Gakpo, Xavi Simons, who's produced now and again. He's a flair player that can do something special. But I don't think they've been anything spectacular. But they did show good character against Turkey the other night to come back after conceding the first goal. They kept their composure. And that says quite a bit about, you know, the character of that side, the mentality of it. So, yeah, a tough task.
And as I said right at the top of the hour, we started with 24. We are down to just 4 now. Who are the favourites?
Probably Spain of the 4. They have been the standout team, I think. Below them, it's been much of a muchness, hasn't it? That rafter sides below. So interesting, that one against France, that semi. But yeah, they probably will be feeling this could be our year. But you know, the England boys will be feeling exactly the same at this moment. We're used to getting to semis and finals now, and that was never the case, was it? So I think psychologically we're in a good place.